G'day everyone, welcome to the Bothy. I'm Chris. Al's still away, but not for too much longer. It came as no surprise that the road that the Machete Bins were on led back to Dan Andrews. No surprise at all. So let's go through the Machete Bin facts, then let's see how they lead back to Dan, and let's just see what is lurking in the background behind Dan Andrews' business. So in case you weren't aware, from 1 September 2025, it's illegal to own, carry, buy, sell, or use a machete without a valid exemption and can land you 2 years jail and a fine of $47,000, but more likely no jail or fine and a confiscation of the weapon. In the first 2 weeks that the Machete Bins were in place, there's 45 of them across police stations, 1,386 machetes have been handed in. That's an average of 2.2 machetes per bin per day. These boxes were made by Visi for an average cost of $325,000, $13 million spent on these boxes. Now, we wonder if in that $13 million, that includes the public safety campaign, that includes posters, billboards, community outreach, that'll run alongside the bins. We're sure it does. It's probably not truly $325,000 spent on each bin, but regardless, for 40 to 45 bins, it's a lot of money to spend. We understand they have to be tamper-proof. We understand they have to be secure, but that does seem like a lot of money for a box. Would it have been better to offer a $200 reward for every machete handed in? The government spent $3 million promoting this and then handed out $10 million on rewards. 50,000 machetes would have been handed in. People would have been stealing other people's machetes just to hand them in and get the reward. Now, sure, this might have created a black market for machetes, but it would also have had people handing in machetes found in their kids' bedrooms, sheds, gardens, and hidey holes. We wonder how many machetes have been handed in from people who had desired to use them with ill intent. We're really not sure. So Visi is owned by billionaire Anthony Pratt, the Pratt family. Has been for years. Started as a cardboard box company, is now a massive corporation in Australia. It has a number of former politicians on its advisory list, including consultants such as Tony Abbott, Scott Morrison, Paul Keating, and more recently, our favourite former politician, Dan Andrews. It's been reported that Dan Andrews earns a retainer of $100,000 a year from Visi. Is it by chance that Dan is linked to these boxes? I don't think so. I wonder if he was used in consultation with the Labor government in Victoria. I can't see Scott Morrison or Tony Abbott standing in and negotiating with Jacinta. I think it might have been Dan. So what else has Dan been up to? Good to see him representing Australia in the congregation of evil villains in China recently. Perfect for Dan, being photographed with Chi, Vlad, Kim, Masood, Kassym, Serdar, Dana and Adrian were there, as well as leaders from Myanmar's military junta, as well as Helen and John from that other evil empire, New Zealand. From reports we've read, Dan owns 2 businesses, and this is where things get a little interesting for me. He owns Glen Cairn Street, of which Dan is the sole director, and Wedgetail Partners, again where Dan is the sole director, but there is a second shareholder in this company, a gentleman by the name of Zheng Wei, or Marty May, depending on who you ask. Zheng Wei was employed by the Victorian government under Dan Andrews as Dan's multicultural advisor. He accompanied Dan on many of his visits to China, and Zheng was known to be integral in the government's policy on China. He was instrumental in the writing of the Belt and Road Initiative deal, which was later torn up by Robo-Debt King himself, ScoMo. Marty May was also instrumental in the collection of 6-figure sums as donations to the Victorian Labor Party from key Chinese business groups prior to Victoria being signed up to the Belt and Road Initiative. Now, he is known as a tireless worker. He's available 24/7 to his business associates and partners, and is extremely dedicated to his employer, of which he has more than one. But one is our friend Dan. He arrived on a student visa in 2006 and has remained once his studies were completed. His family are involved in politics. In fact, one of them is a politician in China. So does this call into question the integrity of these 2 former political employees? Have they used property of the state to gain profit after politics? We will let you decide that. We don't want to cast any aspersions. All of this is just what we've learned through the Google machine, so could be accurate, might not. But it all smells a little bit fishy to us. So what was Dan really doing in China? Was he paving the way for Jacinta? So Jacinta comes back from China, and now we hear that China are going to be involved in funding the new rail loop. I don't know, have they by stealth got a rail initiative back into, a Belt and Road initiative back into Victoria?
More Chinese investment is bound for Victoria, with Jacinta accused of bringing back the banned Belt and Road deal by stealth. The Premier sold a major energy project to China. Now she's left the door open to a deal on the suburban rail loop.
In a race of her own to secure SRL funding, Jacinta leaving the door open to investment from the Chinese superpower.
We'll be having more to say over the course of this week.
It's understood the Premier is in closed-door talks she denied 2 days ago while boarding in Melbourne.
It's completely wrong. It's just not true that will be a feature of the visit this week.
And if they do, would Albo tear it up? I don't think so. He's just been China himself. It makes us nervous that China are wielding so much influence in Australia and Australia's sphere, and that one of Australia's longest-serving political figures has been frequenting China and building his relationship with them and shares business with someone linked to the Chinese government. So let us know what you think. Is it all above board? Is it okay that these relationships are formed? I'm sure it is. I'm sure it's legal. It's just whether it sits morally right. It's just whether there's some integrity issues there, and we don't know the answers to these, but I'm sure you'll have your opinion. Let us know in the comments. What do you think? You tell us what your decision is. Thanks, everyone. See you later.